issues on the council meeting agenda and on other general matters that are important to you. It provides an opportunity for councillors to hear directly from the community, understand the needs and concerns of constituents and make more informed decisions. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to outline a few procedures in relation to this evening's public forum. I want to remind everyone that this is a public forum and we must all be respectful of each other. I remind councillors of their oath or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Act and printed at the front of the business paper. All attendees must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. This meeting is being recorded and the webcast will be published to Council's website. Councillors, council staff and speakers will be shown on camera. Attendees must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct or making other potentially defamatory statements. Any statements made and actions taken by the individuals are those of the individuals making them and are not endorsed or supported by Council. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during the forum. Councillors and council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have about any item of business that is on the agenda this evening. A few reminders for our speakers this evening. Speakers cannot use or present any props, audio or visual material. Any written material must be lodged when registering or handed to staff. Each speaker has 3 minutes to address council. A chime will sound when you have 30 seconds left to speak. If you have a lot to say, I encourage you to submit a written submission. Each councillor may ask a maximum of 2 questions. Speakers are under no obligation to answer. If you do, please limit it to 1 minute. Speakers cannot ask questions of councillors or council staff. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for councillors? Just check, we do have Councillor Balachandran online. Okay, it looks like there are no conflict of interest declarations. Now, we only have one item on the agenda, which is GB1, the Norman Griffiths Oval Update. We have 16 speakers, which we also receive 50 written submissions for. Okay, so we will start with our first speaker. So they're allocated in how people had registered. So our first speaker this evening on the Norman Griffiths Oval Update is Kristen Hayward, who is speaking against representing Ku-ring-gai views.
Councillors, in 2019, Norman Griffiths was ruled out for synthetic turf. Council's own report said the site was not viable due to flood detention, space constraints and environmental factors. Even the then president of the West Pymble Football Club, Kevin Johnson, admitted Council gave up because the costs were so exorbitant. If Council had listened to their own experts, we wouldn't be left with a $12.4 million price tag. This at a site that is flood-prone, bushfire risk and beside endangered bushland. Exactly the conditions of the New South Wales chief scientist warned against. Others tonight will cover the flawed financial assumptions in the report. I want to focus on what's missing from the report. Environmental warnings. Dr. Scott Wilson, Australia's leading microplastic scientist, has shown synthetic fields shed millions of particles into soils and waterways, even with controls in place. That means pollution spreading through Quarry Creek and Lane Cove National Park. Ecologist Roger Lambert warns the oval borders critically endangered Sydney turpentine ironbark forest. Synthetic turf will threaten orchids, microbats, powerful owls and groundwater that sustains the ecosystem. We've tried to bring this to the attention of council many, many times before. And let's be honest, there's been this environmentally friendly claim about the turf because it's going to have natural infill. Well, it's a smokescreen that detracts from the real issue, the plastic shop pads and the blades that break down and release microplastics into the soil, air and water. That is the real issue here. A peer-reviewed research in Science of the Total Environment confirms that these components, not just the infill, are the main source of microplastic pollution. Swapping the infill does not make synthetic turf environmentally friendly. This report was also written through a revenue lens, not a community or environmental one. If the brief had been to protect the environment and maximise the community benefit, whilst giving the players a wonderful field, no doubt the recommendation would be for natural turf. Tonight, this is not just about money, it's about values. Where are the environmental and community orientated councillors in the green heart of Ku-ring-gai? Do we lock the community out and damage our environment? Or do we leave a living, cooling, natural green space for players, for our future generations? Don't be misled by this biased report. Thank you.
Kristen, if you could just stay there for a couple of moments. I've got a couple of councillors that have some questions. And just remember, it's up to you whether you'd like to answer the question or not. So I'll start with Councillor Sam No.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Kristen. Just a quick question. What does it mean to be representing Ku-ring-gai Views? Because my understanding is Ku-ring-gai Views is just a Facebook group of diverse opinions.
It's actually Voices of Ku-ring-gai. I'm not sure how that was transcribed that way. I'm the convener of Voices of Ku-ring-gai.
Thank you.
Councillor Kim Wheatley.
Thank you for coming, Kristen. Can I get a copy of that speech? I just wanted to look into the microplastics and that scientist.
Can I send you the peer-reviewed science study as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's a lot of references to this, so I'll send you the longer version with all the research.
And your speech.
Yes, I'll do both. Thank you for asking. That's wonderful.
Okay, and I will just get the council staff to change Ku-ring-gai Views
Yes.
to Voices of Ku-ring-gai.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kristen. Our next speaker is Paul Oslington, who will be speaking against.
Okay. I'm along tonight with, I'd just like to be clear about the views, the assumptions that I start off with. Firstly, I'm absolutely on board with the need for sporting facilities. There's no argument about that. I think we need to complete something in the mess that's there at the moment that I ride past very often to go and swim the pool. So absolutely on board with the need for community supporting facilities. So as far as I'm concerned, the issue is between whether it's completed as a synthetic or a natural turf field. I, as a resident and a member of a local bush care group, am extremely concerned. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an environmental scientist, but I'm extremely concerned about the environmental impact of a synthetic turf field. The contribution I feel I can make to the discussion tonight is with bringing my professional expertise from economics. I've done a PhD at University of Sydney in economic modelling, precisely this sort of modelling. I've been on the Economic Society Council and Vice President Academic of the Economic Society for several decades. I've written in academic journals on this sort of economic modelling, as well as I'm invited to write for popular publications, The Australian and The Conversation included. So I'd just like to bring something of perspective from economic modelling in the decision, which I think is the crucial one between natural and synthetic here. It was a little bit odd I felt the way the discussion was framed about whether it should be completed, to me the key decisions that councils have to make is between whether it's completed as natural or synthetic. The first observation I'd make about it is that I was a little puzzled that we had this report from Bridge 42. It surprised me the council didn't have the internal expertise to assess the material that was provided by those three organisations, Ag Enviro, Sports Eng and Smart Connections. I know there are some concerns about the independence of the advice that was provided by Sports Eng and Smart Connections, but that's something that I'll just leave for others to discuss. The observation I'd like to make about the Bridge 42 report is that it's not a cost-benefit analysis. New South Wales Treasury guidelines for project evaluation specify that a cost-benefit analysis should be conducted in accordance with the guidelines which they provide. What's been provided to Council by Bridge 42 is a financial analysis of the impact on the Ku-ring-gai Council bottom line, and that's not a cost-benefit analysis in accordance with the New South Wales Treasury guidelines. So, in particular, it ignores the wider community costs and benefits, and I find it very odd that a project of this scale and this sensitivity and financial risk for council hasn't been done as a proper cost-benefit analysis. So in particular,
Paul, if I could just get you to wrap up your times.
It ignores some substantial risks. My own calculations, which I'm happy to provide to council, is that even on the assumptions of the financial impact to Ku-ring-gai Council, that natural turf, by my calculations, is way ahead. If you apply more reasonable assumptions, such as adjusting the sewer adjustment, the contract, and also
Paul,
I find the assumptions of the differential rates and hours absurd.
Mr. Oslington, if I could just get you to wrap up.
Sure.
But we're more than happy if you wanted to email.
Happy to provide that.
Yeah, no,
But
that'd be
by
fine.
my calculations, just making those very reasonable basic assumptions, the net present value of natural
If you could just,
comes to 4.8 million.
No,
and the
can
net
you
present
just
value-
wrap it up? There is a 3-minute limit, and unfortunately, I've sort of got to stick to the limit. So more than happy for you to email that through to all of the councillors.
So basically, and my conclusion's doing a proper analysis of this, even within council's parameters
excuse me,
of a
Mr.
proper
Otley.
analysis, is there's a $2.4 million advantage to natural turf. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
There's no questions.
Madam Mayor, I actually have
Oh, sorry, Councillor
I think there were
Smith.
three, Madam Mayor.
And I have a question online.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Belchandra.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I missed. Sorry, what was your qualification?
So I've done a doctorate at University of Sydney in economic modelling. I'm a professor of economics. I've been on the Economic Society Council for several decades, and I've done research published in academic journals and in
So it's
popular
around.
publications.
So just to wrap that up, so it's around economics. Is
Yeah,
the
it's
reason why you're
exactly
bringing up
this
cost
sort of
analysis.
economic modelling.
Okay.
cost-benefit
Councillor Smith, can you not interrupt
Just
the,
one other
the speaker?
question I would like to ask is, you made comment about there was an issue in an independent, that it did not appear to be independent. You were going to let others delve into that. Can you just advise why you're saying that we haven't had an independent study done?
Well, just reading the report, I mean, I've read a lot of these things. It seemed to me that
that's fine.
that
Thank
the
you. It was just reading the
assumptions,
Councillor
the
Smith,
discussion
can you
in the text of the document
continue?
was quite inconsistent with the calculations that were actually made, and that gave me suspicions along those lines.
Thank you.
But,
Councillor Smith, could
can't
you stop
comment further.
interrupting the speaker when he's trying to answer?
Sorry, Madam Mayor,
question.
I was just thanking the speaker. He answered my questions. That's all I
He
was
hasn't
asking.
finished speaking, so can we all be courteous to
I'm
each
done,
other?
Councillor Kay, on that. I feel I've answered that adequately, but
Okay,
happy to take it.
that's okay. We've got a couple of more questions if you're willing to answer those. So I will go to Councillor Indu Balachandran, who's online.
Thank you.
First.
Thank you, Mr. Ossington, for coming to speak to us. Can you
Sorry.
can everyone hear me?
Sorry, just can see you behind now. Thanks. I haven't actually been to one of these meetings before, so just getting the hang of things. So I'm actually a resident in Gordon Ward in your ward.
Oh,
So, yeah.
thank you. My question to you, I'm assuming everyone can hear me and will tell me if you can't, is I was interested in your early comment about Treasury guidelines on value versus what you saw in this financial analysis. If you could please share with us what some of the key omissions or differences are that you think are relevant for us to be aware of as decision makers in this.
Yeah, basically, what's been provided to council is an assessment of a calculation of the impact on council's bottom line over a 30-year time frame, rather than a project cost-benefit analysis, which is the standard for a government project, which takes into account the full community benefits and costs, not just the benefits and costs to council's bottom line. So, for instance, something like the loss of amenity to people during summer from a synthetic field is not counted. Something like the risks involved if, say, there is legislation that forces these synthetic fields to be torn up, at some time in the future. Those sort of risks are completely excluded from the analysis, and the risk seems to me the largest violation from the New South Wales Treasury Guidelines. I'm happy to provide councillors a link to the New South Wales Treasury Guidelines. They're a complicated, lengthy document, but there's pretty clear and consistent violations of what the New South Wales government is saying is the standard for evaluation of projects, let alone projects of this magnitude and risk.
Thank you. That answers my question. If you could send us that link, that would be lovely.
I'm happy to send my calculations and the link to that to council if that's helpful.
We've got a
Yes,
couple of
thank
more
you.
questions for you. Councillor Matt Devlin.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Professor, for your time and your interest in this evening.
Paul is perfectly fine.
That's
I'd only mention my expertise because
that's
it's relevant to the analysis. I usually go by Paul.
No, that's fine.
As a resident.
Yes. Out of respect,
Yes.
I think it's well earned, so I'll address you as such. But thank you for your time and your interest in this. A couple of queries I had, and I think you've addressed some of those through your response to Councillor Balachandran, and I appreciate that. And that was around your own calculations and the Treasury documentation. I did, however, just want to highlight and just clarify before having a look at those figures.
Yeah.
You made comment around the sewer rectification works. Now, my understanding, and I can't speak for everybody else, but my understanding is that is a Sydney Water asset, and that the determination for what rectification is undertaken is entirely in the hands of Sydney Water, as much as council may prefer a cheaper option is considered. Have you factored that into both of the options before us, or only a cheaper option for the sewer rectification works under natural?
I hope the assumptions in the analysis are fairly clear, but basically I did it first under the assumptions of the analysis that was provided. So that was assuming that the sewer rectification costs are exactly the same for both, and all the other assumptions in the report. So I
appreciate that.
Under those assumptions, it turns out natural is slightly ahead. The other analysis I've done is what I've called the most reasonable assumptions, and I've been conservative there. Based on the text of the report, I'm not a scientist. I'm not familiar with Sydney Water's requirements. But just reading the text of the report, they suggest there's a significant cost saving, is very likely under the natural turf option. So what I've done in my analysis is I've reduced the sewer rectification cost by 50%.
Thank you very much for that. I might just place it on on notice, if I may, would flag that I might put it on notice that I would like to seek formal clarification on exactly how that breakdown might look with staff after we get your information. But thank you very much for your time.
I mean, again, I'm just relying on what's in the report, and doing that numerically. I haven't got any specialised expertise on, whether 50% is an appropriate reduction of the cost for natural turf. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Good.
That's it. So I will just remind people, for people that haven't been here before, that you will get a buzz at 2.5 minutes, letting you know there's another 30 seconds. So if we could sort of maybe just finish that sentence, I will offer a little bit of leniency, but I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak fairly. Okay. Our next speaker is Jill Green, who is representing STEP, who will be speaking against.
Oh, good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this important decision that Council is about to make about playing field that will have a long-term impacts on Bicentennial Park and Quarry Creek. STEP opposes the installation of synthetic turf, and we support the project proceeding with natural grass. I want to highlight some risks that must be considered before proceeding with us. If you do decide to proceed with a synthetic field, you need to consider some of the consequences and the potential risks. As an actuary, I'm used to considering risks. Risks are assessed as possibilities or scenarios, but the staff report does not consider any variations in assumptions. Firstly, the understanding about the health risks to us humans and wildlife from microplastics in the environment is rapidly developing. What is the risk that synthetic turf will have to be banned by the health authorities when the time comes in 10 years, for example, to replace the surface? It will cost a lot more to go back to grass at that time than taking the precautionary approach now and going ahead with natural grass. Some countries are already phasing out the use of synthetic turf, the Netherlands, for example, and then there's another factor, there's a possible content of PFAS chemicals in the synthetic turf. Can we be sure that they're not present? There is the mention of the use of no-fill synthetic turf, but that will take some time to investigate, and it will still be lots of microplastics being shed by synthetic turf. Secondly, the environmental assessment required under the planning legislation is still not being completed, or it's not even mentioned in the staff report. Thirdly, there's the financial risk. There's only one set of assumptions in the financial comparison, and these are drawn on past data. The capital costs are very close, there's only an $11,000 difference. Aspects of the natural turf calculation can be questioned. For example, is the biobasin needed, and will the sewer renewal cost the same for the two options? And then after 30 years, the synthetic has to be replaced again, while the grass is still good to go. That makes the synthetic present value cost about $6,000 more. The most telling assumptions relate to income from the hire of the field. The comparison is not credible. A range of scenarios must be assessed. How can 2,500 hours per annum hire usage, not bookings, for synthetic surface be justified, and only 1,200 for real grass? That's 50 hours a week, say 12 hours on weekends and 5 hours on weekdays. The soccer season doesn't go all year, and so what other sports will want to be playing for 50 hours in the middle of summer? And why only 1,200 hours on a grass field? That's just not consistent with what the likely experience is on a high quality natural turf field that isn't affected by the weather in the way that the current fields are. So I think if assumptions are more reasonable, you end up with a totally different result, and it simply makes more sense to adopt a natural grass field. Thank you.
Jill, I've just got one question from Councillor Matt Devlin, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jill. Thanks for coming up tonight, and again your passion on this particular matter. I note that you made reference to banning of synthetic surfaces and paid particular reference to the Netherlands. I've been urged by some in the community to go and do my own research, and from what I have read and what I understand from that, it would appear, or at least be my understanding, that the Netherlands have not banned the use of or the continuation of synthetic fields, but rather the synthetic or the synthesised rubber or plastic infills, and that those bans come into place by the year 2030, and post 2030 those surfaces will still be not only in use in their current form, but will able to be replaced in the future, again post 2030, with natural infill. Are you able to confirm that it's either completely banned, or that it's only an element that has a ban to be implemented in 5 years' time?
Well, I'm not totally familiar with that detail, but there's also several states in the United States that are putting restrictions on the use of synthetic turf. So I could do some research, send you some research.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Jill. No more questions. Our next speaker is Dale Crosby, who will be speaking against. If you could just move the microphone closer to... Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Just so we can hear it very clear
Okay.
as a recording.
Councillors, your own documents show that more than 7 million has already been spent on Norman Griffiths Oval. Another 5.4 million required to complete the project, synthetic or natural. That's over 12 million in total for a project that began at just 3.3. We've been here before. When the first Review of Environmental Factors was published, it was described as the best REF the Council had ever produced. Yet here we are, millions over budget, construction halted, community trust eroded. We all want better fields for our players and the community, but the real question is, what has changed since the last decision was made? 2 weeks ago, the state government introduced Division 5.1 Addendum for synthetic turf sports fields in response to the New South Wales Chief Scientist report on synthetic turf published 3 years ago. These guidelines are not optional. Page GB 127 of your own agenda for Thursday's meeting confirms that any updated REF must incorporate them before construction proceeds. They must be considered before you decide on synthetic versus natural turf. These new guidelines make clear the very real risks involved. For example, the section on stormwater impacts states that a single synthetic field sheds hundreds of kilograms of turf fibres and infill every year into stormwater and waterways. This means microplastics entering our creeks and soils, and the problem only grows as fields age or if maintenance falls short. The guidelines also require enclosed drainage, 200 micron filters, and long-term monitoring and maintenance programs to manage the risk. Councillors must ensure that these obligations are fully costed and implemented before proceeding, because you'll be the ones making that decision. The guidelines go further, requiring Council to consider in ways which are new human health impacts, such as extreme heat stress, chemical exposure, the loss of access to natural green spaces. They highlight biodiversity and amenity concerns, and they require every synthetic field to have a binding end-of-life plan under New South Wales Circular Economy Framework. With virtually no recycling options available today, only repurposing, the community faces significant landfill costs every 10 years. These are new, more detailed and defined obligations, new costs and new risks. They cannot be brushed aside with a tick-the-box approach that seems to have been used in the past. Councillors, my call tonight is simple. Don't push ahead until the new guidelines are fully and properly considered and incorporated into a new REF. Ratepayers can't afford another costly mistake. Don't put approval before accountability. The people of Ku-ring-gai, all the people of Ku-ring-gai, deserve better than history repeating itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Doesn't look like there's any questions for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mignon Booth, who is speaking against.
After terminating the problematic previous project, Council promised an independent investigation to review compliance, governance, tendering policies and practices to obtain the key learnings for the future. And yet here councillors are, and here you are, making those decisions on proceeding before that report into what was wrong is completed. This document is the high-level assessment upon which Council is asking councillors to make a decision on how to proceed with the Norman Griffiths development. So what happens here in this document? Firstly, Council gets Sportseng and Smarts Connections to be their advisors for this report. These are the very same players involved in the designs, the advocacy, the construction techniques, and even the environmental assessments of the previous Turf 1 project. What went wrong there? Wrong flood designs, wrong stormwater designs, wrong aggregate capacities, wrong overflow paths, wrong biobasin, new asbestos fines, construction techniques that triggered how many EPA notices and how many rescue tankers. They had to come back to Council how many times for more funding for rectification problems? How do you avoid this litany of errors and cost blowouts? Well, an independently validated review of environmental factors and assessments does this. So how was this done previously? Well, at the beginning, you had the invisible environmental impact statement, never to be found, followed by a draft ref, or as we call it, the cut and paste of a splash park ref, with the final ref appearing on the eve of litigation well after procurements and construction had actually started. So how's the new ref going? It's officially another draft ref with amendments and assessments that came after the problems that were encountered. It's not following the New South Wales guideline for Division 5.1 assessments. There are still not any comparisons of environmental risks or environmental disadvantages, advantages of synthetic versus natural services. And you might say, why is this actually meaningful? Here is an example. There is a complete absence of all the recent emerging evidence of risks and environmental effects of the microplastic water pollution and PFAS contaminants associated with synthetic ovals. These surfaces could well be banned in the future, as is happening overseas, and the surface needing to be removed. This decision-making process is a rerun using the same players, the same processes, and providing no assurance to councillors of cost containment for the next 40% of financial commitments.
Thank you, Mignon. Our next speaker is Rob Hanna, who will be speaking against.
Councillors, you are now facing the responsibility of determining the future course of Norman Griffiths Oval and the future expenditure of a large amount of further funds on this disastrous project. In this situation, it is important that councillors ensure full compliance with the codes of conduct. In particular, councillors must be very sure that no one with a pecuniary interest is involved in the evaluation. In addition, it is necessary for councillors to address an actual, perceived or potential conflicts of interest in the public interest. There must be fair and open competition. Public resources must be expended properly in a fair and open competition. These principles should be well known to you, councillors. We are concerned about how the evaluation process has been conducted against the background of the strict requirements of the Council's codes. I have two issues I wish to raise. Who is doing the evaluation? Very surprisingly, the evaluation was conducted by two entities, which are Sport Engine Martin Shepherd, both of whom are in the business of promoting and advocating synthetic services and have prior knowledge in the prior involvement in the first and now failed attempt to put synthetic service on Norman Griffiths. On its face, these two entities have a perceived conflict of interest. No fair-minded person would be confident that these entities would provide an objective and fair evaluation in the promotion of these services in their business. Secondly, as Sport Engine was involved in the original design, it is unclear whether they have any unresolved legal liability and how they would benefit from a decision to keep going with synthetics. On its face, they have a clear potential conflict of interest. Further investigation of these issues needs to be undertaken by councillors now in order to discharge your individual responsibilities and duties in the law. These aspects must be thoroughly investigated. If councils are in any doubt about that, they can take legal advice or ask ICAC to advise them. There's some errors in the evaluation. It looks at the nature of the evaluation, which has resulted in additional additions to the natural alternative. There appears to be another errors, and I'll now summarise them. Two of those are particularly key: the hours and the higher rate, because those two assumptions, if you put in reasonable assumptions, it flips the analysis on its head and it turns the exact opposite. But please don't take my word for it. What is needed is an evaluation by an independent expert and not an evaluation by obviously biased parties. All the errors appear to be against natural turf. The biobasin inclusion, the less onerous rectification of the Sydney sewer asset. For the reasons above, councillors should not proceed on the basis of the inadequate evaluations before them. The evaluation received is not such that councillors can discharge their own ethical responsibilities by allocating monies based on this evaluation, as it is obvious errors, omissions, and prepared by parties who at least appear to not be independent.
Okay, I have a question from Councillor Matt Devlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. G'day, Rob. Thanks very much. I appreciate you reaching out last week about this as well, so thank you on that note. There's been some significant reference both through your address this evening and elsewhere online in the last week or so around Sport Engine. I'll just declare I've never dealt with them, wouldn't know if they're in the room tonight or if I tripped over them. But following again some encouragement to go and have a look and do some research, I noted that they're not necessarily fair to be described as pro-synthetic. They've done a number of, quite a large number of natural turf. My understanding from reading the report that the consultants Bridge 42 put together is that they use Sport Eng to provide some engineering around the biobasin and that part of the network more so than pushing a synthetic surface as a part of that report. Are you suggesting that they were biased in their report rather than just focusing on the engineering?
I'm suggesting that you need to get some independent advice to see whether that's the case, because it's not my neck that's on the line, it's yours.
Right. And the other one that's probably got me more concerned, and I just wanted to flag this. I know at the start of the meeting the Mayor made specific reference to the Code of Meeting Practice and outlined that alleging any breaches were quite significant. You've made reference to pecuniary interest and the decision before councillors. Were you suggesting that any councillors had a pecuniary interest in this?
No,
just wanted to clarify
not for one iota.
Okay.
No.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Rob. Thank
you very much. I do have some analysis and stuff, so if you'd like me to send that through, that's possible as well.
Yeah, if I could actually get all of the speakers that haven't done written submissions to maybe email their speeches through, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Okay. Our next speaker is Christian Berlioz, who is now speaking in person, so I know we had you online earlier.
Madam Mayor, councillors, I object to the Norman Griffith Oval project upgrade to a synthetic field. Be keen to see it go ahead very quickly as a natural field. I have multiple reasons, but tonight, because of time constraints, I wish to address the potential environmental and health risks which have been completely overlooked in the comparison of synthetic and natural turf study. AusMap collaborated with Council on studying, I presume it's Charles Bean, although their website just says a local field, and the study to determine the observation of significant rubber crumb and synthetic grass loss, and they found that the study provided evidence of synthetic field pollution indicating consequential adjacent environmental concerns. That's on the AusMap website, and it refers to Ku-ring-gai Council specifically. Now, rubber crumb has been the main focus concerning environmental and health impacts, and it's subject to bans in overseas, including in Norway, where my son lives. That's for the infill. Certain councillors will be justifying the construction of a synthetic field on the basis it will have cork as infill. And the point I'm making is that the manufacture of grass fibres or blades, there are many chemicals, including, I've got the list if you want them, including PFAS, and chemicals known as carcinogens, neurotoxins, mutagens, and endocrine disruptors. And all of this toxic health impacts or risks are being ignored by Council. The following are just little bits of extract from an article in the US National Institute of Health regarding health impacts of artificial turf. It says, although crumb rubber is notoriously hazardous, other components of turf should be studied as well. Another recently recognised health hazard of artificial turf is the introduction of micro and nanoplastics into the environment, an emerging environmental concern. Another extract, artificial grass fibres have been shown to leach multiple phthalates, which are known reproductive toxicants, and various PFAS having been identified in artificial turf samples. Additional studies that incorporate all components of artificial turf are strongly needed. Now, these studies date from 1920 to 21. Is it already time? The need for more studies is consistent with the Chief Scientist's report on synthetic fields, which identified that although there are numerous studies indicating chemical health and environmental impacts, there is a knowledge gap and more comprehensive research and investment is required to understand the full extent and impact of synthetic fields on human health under Australian conditions. Basically, research may prove there is absolutely no safe level of exposure to these chemicals. And given this uncertainty, as well as the risk assessment gaps, means that until proven otherwise, there is no evidence that synthetic fields are safe for the environment or for health. Council should be applying a tough precautionary measure before continuing construction of any synthetic fields.
Thank you, Christian. Doesn't look like we have any questions for you. Our next speaker is Michael James, who will be speaking for.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and members. I'm here tonight to urge Ku-ring-gai Council to not only continue building the synthetic field at Norman Griffith Oval, but to finish the project without delay. Every week this decision is pushed back, our community loses opportunities for sport, health and social connection. I have spoken in this forum many times now, from the beginning on behalf of West Pymble Bicentennial Club and more recently as a concerned resident. This project was started because there was a clear and urgent need. Our grass fields are overused, overbooked and regularly closed due to weather. Every parent, coach and player knows the frustration of turning up or having the whole weekend cancelled because of the weather. In a neighbourhood where thousands of children and families rely on local sport, those cancellations impact the whole community. Synthetic fields are a proven solution. A grass field can manage about 20 hours of safe use each week. A synthetic surface can handle 3 times that amount. That means more training sessions, more matches and fewer cancellations. It means kids spending more time outdoors, being active and building friendship. It means stronger local clubs, healthier families and a community that thrives year-round. Delaying the completion of this project is coming at a heavy cost. There is the financial cost of construction delays, meaning higher expenses, but there is also the social cost of parents paying for sports seasons that are constantly interrupted, volunteers struggling to keep clubs alive, and children missing out on the sport they deserve. When the council begins a project, the community expects a commitment and trusts it to be delivered. While this upgrade is postponed again, it sends a message that commitments can be broken and that promises can be delayed indefinitely. That loss of trust is far harder to repair than any field. Councillors, you have already committed to building this recreational complex. You have almost finished it. Now the community is watching to see if you'll keep your word. Leadership means following through and delivering what has been promised. I urge you, do not delay any longer. Delays are costing us too much, socially, financially and recreationally. Finish the Norman Griffith synthetic field now. Show this community that when Ku-ring-gai Council starts a project, it finishes it. Shows families, players and volunteers that their council keeps its word and values the benefit of sport. At the end of the day, this is about more than just a sports complex. It's about opportunity, trust and belief that our council will stand with its community and finish what it started. I have had and traded many Facebook comments with Councillor Matt Devlin, and I appreciate he always gives feedback. But it's time to stop talking, stop postponing and get the job done. Finish the Oval, deliver the sporting complex our community deserves. No more delays, no more excuses. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Matt Devlin for you. Michael?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to just seek clarification through confirmation with a yes or no. Just you're aware that I engage with everybody and not just yourself, and that I'm only one around the table.
I would be surprised if I was the only one that you did reply to. So yes, I understand that question.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. That looks like all the questions we have. Our next speaker is Matt Egerton Warburton, who is representing West Pymble Football Club, speaking against.
Madam Mayor, can I
Oh, sorry.
Can I clarify? Is that for or against? I would have thought it was
okay.
for.
It does, okay, so for, sorry, on my sheet it's got against, but that's all good. We'll make sure we get that changed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Mayors and councillors and ratepayers of the community, what are we doing here? We are creating a facility to encourage community sport, to encourage community football here in Ku-ring-gai. And we're about to spend $12 million on this. So the first priority is we have to build a facility that's fit for purpose. Okay? If we go back to a grass facility, it will not be fit for purpose. It's proved that over the last 60 years. Whenever the football season starts, within a month it turns either into a mud pit or a sand pit. Now, it's not a problem having a wonderful, big and healthy club with hundreds of kids and mums and dads playing. That's a great problem to have. So you guys are going to help us provide a facility for these people. So provide a facility that works. And it's only going to work if you do a synthetic surface. I can't tell you how good it is for the children in the community to have a facility where they can play all year round and not have games be cancelled constantly, not have rolled ankles, not have mud pits, not have sand everywhere, which is what we've had for the last 60 years. We're about to spend $12 million. Let's get it right. So if you go through the reports that's dealing with natural grass talks about 550 hours of usage. 550 hours of usage, for the weekend. That's not nearly enough. There are 900 players in the club. They train on Wednesdays, they train on Mondays, they train on Thursdays, they play on the weekend. If you don't provide a facility that's going to work for them, we'll end up back at square one after spending $12 million. So please, we are this close to producing a facility that will actually do what we want it to do, which is to encourage the families of Ku-ring-gai to be fit and healthy and active, to have barbecues with one another, to have mum and dad watching little kids play and have the little kids watching mum and dad play. We're that close. Please continue on your present course and finish this project. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
I've just got a question for you from Councillor Martin-Smith. Matt, if that's okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to ask you the same question again. I know you've answered it, but it's just going to help me lead into this. You aren't against the synthetic, you're for the synthetic, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in that case then, between both the written and in-person document that we've got here tonight, that takes it from 51 in support and 10 against, now to 52 for and 9 against. I think that's a little bit of relevance here tonight in regards to the document, so that's on record
Are
of
you
what we've actually got happening here this evening.
Question?
I'm
Matt,
just asking,
Councillor Smith?
I'm actually asking, Matt, are you happy with those figures?
I am happy with those figures.
Can I just ask you another question? With the children, sorry, the parents that have got their children that are potentially playing on synthetic, have any of these parents showed any concern or worries about their children playing on a synthetic grass?
Absolutely not. The parents of the football club are desperate for this facility. You're building a facility for the area, and the people that play football in the area want a synthetic pitch. So give it to them.
We'll be fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any more questions, so thank you, Matt. Our next speaker is Kevin Johnson, representing the Northern Suburbs Football Association, who will be speaking for.
Madam Mayor, councillors, members of the gallery. Yes, I was the West Pymble president when the original proposal to install synthetic at Norman Griffith Oval in 2019 was agreed. We agreed with that. We worked with council with that. Council said, let's move it to Mimosa. We said, okay, we'll support that. We would have preferred Norman Griffith, our home ground. Ended up moved back to Norman Griffith. We supported with council there. So, ladies and gentlemen, we work with council. We don't work against them. We don't take council to the Land Environment Court like some of the opponents of this project are. And I would like to point out that the users of this site are the ones that want a synthetic surface. I want you to focus on the users, not the people who oppose it for whatever reason. Last year we had the wettest football season ever, 11 out of 20 weekends badly affected by weather. And this year we had the wettest August ever. So we're going to have more extreme weather events. I think we accept that. We're only able to fit in just over half of our scheduled matches in August. Nearly 75% of those were on synthetic surfaces. So I encourage you all to look at our Facebook pages. There's lots of pictures of grand final winners and runners-up. These are lifetime experiences we're talking about. These are people, thousands of people, 20,000 members over the course of the year, nearly half in Ku-ring-gai. Those experiences would not have been possible without synthetic pitches. So think about that. The social benefits, the physical health benefits, the mental health benefits. I would like to point out as well that the analysis that has been provided when it compares natural turf and synthetic, it doesn't include nearly $1 million of grants and external funding, which would also have to be returned. And I did note in there that Mr Badham and council have looked at all sides from the natural turf expert from Enviro Solutions. He indicated only 550 players would be able to use the pitch. Okay, and that number's dipped below for West Pymble members, below 900 recently, largely because of what's going on. But that pitch cannot be satisfy the member base like a synthetic pitch would if it was natural turf. Ladies and gentlemen, over 96% of residents, over 700 respondents who lived nearby Norman Griffith in the October 2020 consultation supported or strongly supported a synthetic pitch. We're dealing with a minority of people here who don't, and I dare say people who don't use the pitch as much as the club's members. So how are we going to get to the NESROC target of 49% increase in sports facilities by 2036? Well, synthetic pitches in select locations gets us there. Absolutely, let's improve natural turf in other places. But we touched on the governance issues before. They're very real, okay? I think council want to honour what they said they do, what the previous council decided. I would like to touch on the environmental solutions. If there's one benefit of the delays that we've had, it is that technology has improved. There's a recycling plant for synthetics in Victoria, Barnawartha. There's one coming in New South Wales. I checked with Martin Shepherd, the expert used in the report. 100% of materials are recyclable from synthetic pitches now and can be closed and kept in the site so that they don't go outside. So that's microfilaments as well as organic infill. So I'm happy to update councillors, Madam Mayor, future with that information. But I encourage council to please proceed with the recommendation and the original decision and give us the synthetic pitch that our members want. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I've got a couple of questions for you. So I'll start with Councillor Kim Wheatley.
Thanks, Kevin, for coming along tonight. Just a quick question. You were talking about the users of the fields. In regards to synthetic versus turf, and you mentioned that, or I think the previous speaker may have mentioned in regards to that, you only get a certain amount before it sort of tends to be washed out / muddy / sandy or whatever it is. In regards to synthetic versus natural turf, what would be injuries to children / adults that are playing on it? What would they be in regards to if they were to play on a synthetic turf versus a natural turf that was muddy?
Yeah, certainly we look at Norman Griffith Oval, which was typically muddy with lots of holes. It dries out, there's holes, people injuring their ankles, knees and so forth. Certainly for that kind of typical grass surface, like a Norman Griffith grass surface that it was, injury rate is substantially higher. I haven't got the data on me, but Norman Griffith was higher on the list when it came to, for instance, ambulance visits to the Oval for injury. So for synthetic, that rate on a per user and per hour usage is significantly lower.
Okay, so there's one synthetic field down at the North Turramurra Recreational.
Yep.
If you were to use that as an analogy in regards to, you've got people playing on the synthetic turf and then you've got natural turf next to it, what would be the injuries on those fields?
Yeah, look, I don't have the information at hand, but I would say that the research that I've done indicates that Norman Griffith Oval, when it was grass, compared to Charles Bean on NTRA, at Charles Bean or NTRA you had more than 4 times the usage. And on average, you've got almost double the utility, i.e. double the amount of people at a point in time that can use it. Okay, there is a council restriction on the number of users on a natural turf pitch at one point in time. So to answer your question, I would say that synthetic pitch at Charles Bean would receive more than double the use of the 2 grass pitches next to it combined, but have a significantly lower injury rate. I don't have that to hand.
So in your opinion, you think that synthetic turf will have less injuries than natural turf?
100% with the grass pitches that we're able to have, given the restraints and the usage that we've got at the moment. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Matt Devlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 2 questions. Thanks very much, Kevin. Might be somewhat outside your purview, but I think the back end certainly is. With the growth in population, and we know we're going to have quite a lot of that, I'd imagine that there's going to be an increased demand for sports facilities, but also for open space. At a recent council forum, there was a presentation that suggested there has been a decline or rather an accelerated growth in unorganised sport. And so in that regard, are you able to provide your thoughts, or at least to give us some point of evaluation, how synthetic will provide sufficient usability for unorganised sports users, and do you think that there is a case there to justify the cost involved in this project?
Thanks, Councillor Devlin, for your question. So in terms of informal sport users, look, absolutely yes. I see at all of our grounds the largest number and proportion of informal users at the synthetic pitches. Often that happens when we're playing this. Football sessions happening on the side, there's people walking around the oval. I think it became most pronounced during COVID when there were restrictions, and everyone flocked to the synthetic pitches because of their reliable surface, especially in all forms of weather. So that would be my observation, that whenever you're building a facility for formal sport, the informal users will come. And by the way, that NESROC number, a 49% increase in sports field capacity by 2036, that was before the New South Wales Planning Todd's proposals. Okay, so it's going to be more accentuated than that. We're going to have to meet this demand. Absolutely, we work hand in hand with informal users. Most of us are informal users. We walk down at our local parks and grounds. We use it for fitness and other purposes. And we welcome working hand in hand with informal users at this facility.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. I received a question or a comment from another speaker this evening earlier last week around recycling, and I had a bit of a look into it, and it's an interesting space, but I'm not entirely sold there just yet. You made a comment earlier around the recycling component, made reference to Victoria and potentially something coming online in New South Wales shortly. What was the evidence you suggested for 100% recyclability?
So I referred to the report, and Martin Shepherd had been consulted. I contacted him, and I spoke to him directly. Yes, from
have you got something on that?
Connection Consultancy. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
There is a website link for that that recycling facility in Barnawartha in regional Victoria. So happy to provide that to you, and I'd certainly welcome councillors to contact Martin himself about that. What I found very interesting when speaking to Martin was that the actual filament, as the infill is organic now, it's a wood chip or a cork, but the actual filament itself, that is now produced from sugarcane, okay, rather than petrochemicals as well. So, and if they're enclosed, which his designs are, then that filament cannot leave the oval.
My question on that, so I think you've addressed that. Thanks very much, Kevin. I suppose my question comes from that. It's not just around this particular project, but I note that somewhere in excess of 70% of our sporting fields that involve synthetic are actually tennis courts, cricket pitches and cricket training nets. So we've got a broader issue at hand here. Thanks very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Councillor Balachandran.
Thank you, Kevin, for speaking today. It was interesting to hear you. I have, picking up on a couple of comments you made earlier. The first was around your assessment of injury rates. I'm wondering if you might share with us external independent research that corroborates your own assessment of whether injury rates are higher or lower. Are you aware of any independent reports that indicate whether injury rates are higher or lower in synthetic?
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have that to hand, but anecdotally, we have kept our own records on injury rates, and I'll endeavour to provide those to you and the other councillors after this.
Great. And if there are any other independent reports that also corroborate that, that would be great if you could share those with us. The second question I have is on your comment on informal use. Can you please clarify if you're suggesting that synthetic turf increases or decreases informal use comparative to natural turf?
Look, I don't know if I could categorically say that, but what I have said and what I have observed from our facilities is that we have informal users on all of our grounds, on natural turf and on synthetic. My observation is that those informal users are particularly strong at synthetic fields. They might include people kicking a ball and practicing football themselves. I've seen people throwing a frisbee. I've seen people doing personal fitness sessions. I've seen people do jogging as well. So look, my observation is that there's informal users at all facilities, and that's always going to happen. At a natural turf ground, when you've got a 30-hour limit a week, that's only 30 hours. And a lot of the time, you do have those informal users on the side of the field when we're using it for formal sport. So, yeah, hope that answers your question. And To answer Councillor Devlin's question, absolutely, I think this investment is worthwhile. Have a look
can
at
I
it.
just-
Sorry, I was just going to say, have a look at the photos on our social media and the lifetime memories and benefits that the community's being provided from synthetic pitches that got us through the finals and the season in August, and that is your evidence there.
I'm not arguing about the soccer use. I suppose I'm just trying to understand what you're saying is that there is informal use on both synthetic and natural turf, not that one has any higher or lower informal use than the other. And if you have any evidence to suggest that comes from an independent report, I'd be interested to see that as well, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah, just to answer that, if I might.
Yes.
Yeah, my observation is that there's a higher number of informal users at synthetic pitches. That is only my observation. I don't have an official measure on that. But by observing the users at our pitches, particularly in times of wet weather, there's a much higher number of informal users at synthetic pitches relative to a natural turf pitch.
Thank you.
I've got a question for you, Kevin. When we talk about natural turf fields, would you say that they're at the standard that you think they should be, or we could improve the fields themselves, which would potentially reduce injuries?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Look, certainly we could improve them, but to be fair to council, they're already doing that. We had Primula Oval come online this year, which was a fantastic oval. So we support natural turf pitches and improvement. It gives us more quality, a little more usage without having a huge amount of more usage is our observation and what I've seen in research. But recent fields, Samuel King, Wellington Oval, have been improved as well. And they're not only safer, they improve the experience, and they do get some more usage. I'm not saying a whole lot, but look at Primula Oval, which used to be waterlogged and closed for much of the year. That drainage and surface has been upgraded, and that's a fantastic surface this year. We commend council staff for that, and we look forward to more of those upgrades of natural turf coming in future. So, like, I see us as natural turf is predominantly going to be our surface, but for those extreme weather events and to get that additional usage, particularly in the off-season, a select number of synthetic pitches and strategic sites is what I think is required.
So in your opinion, would you say drainage is the biggest issue on natural turf?
I think it's drainage. I think it's the type of surface. So without getting too technical, the recent upgrades have used the Santa Ana couch, which requires a bit more sun than some other grasses. Kikuyu was largely used before. So I think that is heading in the right direction. I observe it across the other 4 councils in our association, and that couch has been used extensively in other council areas, including Hornsby and Willoughby and North Sydney are ones that come to mind immediately. So look, I think council are adopting the latest approaches there for natural turf. What I would encourage is for the drainage to be regularly looked at and renewed, because we don't want to be in a situation where 2 or 3 years down the track, it goes back to the same condition in terms of being washed out and not playable. And I understand from the council's budget that they do have some money set aside to look into that, which is pleasing.
Thank you, Kevin. I think that's all for the questions. Our next speaker is Kieran Fitzpatrick, representing the West Pymble Football Club, who will be speaking for. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Kieran Fitzpatrick. I'm the president of West Pymble Football Club. Tonight is not about whether grass is better than synthetic. It's about how we, as a community, choose to meet the future. We've listened to Project Fear, focused on obstacles and worst-case scenarios, or will we join Team Hope, focused on solutions, opportunity and access for all? This August showed us exactly what's at stake. Across Ku-ring-gai, only 19% of games were played on natural grass surfaces. In contrast, 94% of games on synthetic went ahead. This is not theory, this is fact. For our kids, it meant 4 out of 5 weekends lost if they played on grass. But for those with access to synthetic, it meant nearly every game was played. And the demand is only growing. Ku-ring-gai is adding 7,600 new homes, which translates into 21,000 residents in the next 5 years. That includes 3,400 new children under 18 likely to join organised sport. And based on current football participation ratios, that's up to 100 new teams, needing training and playing space. Without resilient facilities, we simply won't have the capacity for them to have a place to play. But this isn't just about numbers. Access means excitement. It means the thrill of running onto a pitch with your friends instead of staring out a window at the rain. It means enjoyment, camaraderie, teamwork and community. A playable field is the difference between a child developing healthy habits or sitting at home disappointed. And we must be realistic. Our climate is changing. Rainfall patterns like we saw this August are becoming more common, not less. Natural turf simply cannot cope with the reality. Synthetic fields, especially modern no-infield systems, offer the resilience we need to guarantee play, even in wetter winters. We think about the environment and responsibility. Unfortunately, our friends in Project FEAR talk about plastic, but ignore the real chemical impact of natural turf. To keep grass alive under heavy use, you need tons of fertiliser, pesticides, herbicides and insecticides every decade, all of which will wash into Ku-ring-gai's creeks and groundwater. Modern synthetic fields, especially those using organic or no infill, require little of these. They include drainage and biobasin systems that actually improve water quality downstream. In my view, in environmental terms, synthetic is the cleaner, safer option. Project FEAR sees problems. Team Hope delivers opportunity. We are not fighting the future, we are building it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question from Councillor Matt Devlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Kieran. You noted at the start there something about 94% of games went ahead on synthetic. What was the ratio you had, sorry, the percentage for
19 to 94.
So I'm not a weatherman by any stretch, and that might surprise some in the room, but it felt to me like almost all of August was wet and washed out. How has that impacted, I mean, you're speaking for West Pymble, how's that impacted the club, membership, the psychosocial impacts of not being able to go and play?
Yeah,
how's that been weighed
sure,
up?
there are a couple of elements there. In order to play, you need to train. And of course, when the pitches are washed out week after week after week, kids are stuck indoors, they come, you know, if anyone who's a parent in here knows what it's like dealing with a teenager who's cooped up indoors. That probably warrants the $12 million spend in its own right. If I had it, I'd give it to you. Anyway, so, you know, the reality is that's the stats, right? 19% played on grass, 94% played on synthetic. I think the impacts speak for themselves. You know, people are out enjoying themselves, they're participating.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you, Kieran. I did miss Martin Laslett, so if speaking for. No, sorry, I had two others that aren't here, so I sort of missed you as I bypassed them, but whenever you're ready, Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today on the topic very important to the West Pymble community. I'm going to take a brief divergence off the words Norman Griffiths and West Pymble to talk about Canoon Road netball courts, which ChatGPT describes as a valuable community asset offering top-tier recreational space for netball, tennis and related community use, all framed by the beautiful precinct of Lane Cove National Park. Now, anyone aware of the history of that project is aware of the objections of the local environmentalists at the time. But happily for netball, council had the vision and foresight to understand the needs of the organisation and its thousands of members and help build a great facility that continues to be well used today. And as an aside, I would like to say thank you to the councillors who I saw attending the Canoon Road netball courts for the Ku-ring-gai Netball Association Grand Final day on Saturday. Other long-term residents may remember the brief use of the term Pimbleton a proposal by a couple of local tennis legends to turn the Len West Pymble Quarry site into a tennis centre. Now, this was a little before my time. I was about 12, and records are harder to come by, but I imagine the council at the time identified that tennis was well served by all-weather public and private facilities nearby, and there was an opportunity to create a recreational green space, one now known as the Bicentennial Park. And to end our brief walk down memory lane, I'll note that the West Pymble Dog Park, or Little Lofberg, or briefly Scarborough Oval as it was named, or infamously known for a small time, was for a long time used as a soccer or football field until it was identified that dog owners needed a space and that this would be a good location. So back to Norman Griffiths. Prior to its shutdown, I was a very frequent user of the Oval. I ran and walked there almost every day and at various times of the day depending on my commitments. So make no mistake, outside of football, the biggest users of Norman Griffiths were off-leash dog walkers and recreational runners and walkers. To meet the needs of its members, dog walkers and recreational walkers, they have nearby spaces that they can use. To meet the needs of its members, the football club needs increased hours and to be able to withstand rainfall events. Overall, I suppose I'm trying to say that this challenge is not new, whether it be the construction of a large, much-needed netball facility, creation of green space rather than tennis courts, reallocating space for dog walking, or upgrading a football pitch. Council has been able to work with those willing to engage in a collaborative rather than adversarial fashion and meet the needs of its community. I hope Council can see that this loss of green space is not permanent, as we saw with the quarry site and most recently with the tiny forest. There are opportunities for Council to develop green space where none existed before. The needed upgrade to the Oval does not prevent this, but it does help meet the growing needs of footballers in Ku-ring-gai. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Looks like there's no questions for you, so thank you. Our next speaker is Claire Hartley, representing the West Pymble Football Club, speaking for.
Sorry, Madam
Sorry,
Mayor.
that was just, yeah. Yeah.
Madam
That's
Mayor.
all right. Sorry, Councillor.
Just following on, I know we may have skipped over Brian Hanna and Deborah Gray. They both said it would appear that they were speaking. They've come off the list up there. Okay, I was just going up the printed list from earlier. Thank you very much for clarifying.
That's okay. Whenever you're ready now, Claire. Sorry? Oh, sorry, I had you online, so that's fine. Is it okay if you go after Claire, Emma? Okay, thank you. Okay, whenever you're ready, Claire, thanks.
Good evening, my name's Claire Hartley and I'm a player, a parent of players and the female football representative at West Pymble Football Club. In this capacity, I want to talk to you tonight about inclusion. The fearmongers have talked about inclusion, but they don't understand what inclusion really means in the practical world of female football. Inclusion is not an abstract principle, it's about whether women and girls actually get to play their games, and on natural turf, too often, they don't. The growth in women's sport. Women's football is the fastest growing part of our beautiful game. The National Participation Report shows growth at 15% per year. Every year, more and more women and girls sign up to play. The 2023 Women's World Cup showed what's possible with a 34% uplift in female football registrations for Football New South Wales. And the excitement is real. Growth without reliable facilities means frustration. More girls with fewer fields. The sad case for West Pymble Football Club, however, is that we've actually lost 3 women's teams over the last few years. There is also the Sunday problem in women's football. It's about equality. Most girls' and women's matches are scheduled on Sundays after men's and boys' teams have played on the fields on Fridays and Saturdays. By then, natural turf is often worn down, fragile, and often unplayable after heavy rain or significant dry spells. This leaves women's games more likely to be cancelled, especially when finals take precedent. Week after week, women are last in line. That is not equality, and it is certainly not inclusion. As you've already heard, this August proved a point about washouts. On natural turf, only 19% of games went ahead. On synthetic, 94% were played. Which turf truly supports inclusion? The one that locks women out or the one that keeps them on the field? Far too often, women and girls are the ones to lose football due to wet weather. Synthetic changes the story. Synthetic means inclusion and play for women and girls. What real access means to females at West Pymble Football Club. Access is not a slogan. It is the joy of pulling on a football shirt on a Sunday and knowing the game will happen. It is about playing on safe, even surfaces instead of muddy fields and puddles. It is mothers and daughters being guaranteed access to a sport they love. So in closing, the fearmongers say synthetic limits community use. We, the advocates of hope, know it actually expands it, especially for women and girls. Equality is playable hours, safe surfaces, and the guarantee that when we commit to football, we will actually get to play. We stand for access and inclusion.
Thank you, Claire. I've got one question from, well, maybe two, from Councillor Sam Nye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Claire, just exploring the aspect of inclusion and all of that. So, look, I've no idea what vote will turn out on Thursday night, but can you, other than just having a synthetic surface at West Pymble, do you have any other ideas of how council can be more inclusive for female players in general?
I probably have, but it's probably not pertinent to this discussion tonight, so I'm happy to talk about that offline.
Okay, sure.
Another time.
And then my second question is, so you mentioned that synthetic is safer. Can you expand on, like, I think your argument is on Friday and Saturday, the natural turf gets worn out. By Sunday, it's quite dangerous for women. Can you expand more on, like, the dangerous aspect? Do our female players get injured? What kind of injuries? How's that different on natural turf versus synthetic?
Well, I'm not a medical expert, so I can't give you sort of medical fact, but from personal experience as a player and a parent of players, I've seen some pretty horrendous injuries happen on natural turf, and less so on synthetic.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Oh, sorry. If you could just maybe put your hand, and well, maybe your virtual hand into, no worries. That's fine. Go ahead, Councillor Balachandran.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking, and I'm very interested in the question you raise of access and equity, having been involved in that space for a very long time. I'm particularly interested in how you frame the Sunday problem. It appears to me that the Sunday problem is more about inequitable scheduling than necessarily about turf, because if the boys are playing on Friday and Saturday and the women are left to kind of play on Sunday when everything is left over, I'm interested to understand what is being done to actually create more equitable scheduling in the football clubs, to try and turn that scheduling issue around, notwithstanding the synthetic turf, which I hear your argument.
Well, I mean, the scheduling is not done by the football club, it's done by the higher associations, but I know they are looking at playing more games throughout the week, and something like a synthetic pitch would facilitate more evening games, if possible, and other times of the day. So, but as I said, I'm not the scheduler, so I can't answer that question.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No, doesn't look like it. Thanks. Thank you, Claire. Deborah Gray is our next speaker, and she will be speaking against.
Hello, I'm a long-term resident of West Pymble as well, and my daughter's played soccer for West Pymble as well. And I am also on Team Hope, right? Not on Team Fear. And my hope is that we can actually all work together here and get what we all want, which is, yes, more playing fields. We want, I'm happy to have kids playing soccer. But I'm really quite concerned about what I've heard tonight in terms of, well, soccer has suffered so badly because of the rain, etc. Yet my brother played soccer, all of you guys played soccer and managed through all of these years, and yet now, for some reason, the only thing that this group of people here is just so sole focused on is putting down a plastic turf oval. And that's the part that I'm really getting confused about, as to when you've heard so much tonight about the issues that have come up regarding the synthetic turf, the fact that you've not even, no one's even considered the fact, where is this oval sitting? Where is Norman Griffith sitting? To you, you guys don't even seem to see it, where it actually is, between a critically endangered piece of forest that we're trying to save. We've only got a couple of square k's left of it, and another piece of bushland, right, with, again, critically endangered species there. And now you want to put something right in the middle, and that's what's really intrigued me in terms of this whole like pros and cons thing, is that no one's actually thought, well, gee, we're going to put a great big chunk of sterile land, right? Nothing that any animal can feed on anymore, for example. No birds are going to pick on go and fly down. You're not going to see any birds on that area anymore. You might as well put down a big slab of asphalte. Right? It's just because it's just dead. And there's no interplay between those two areas of land anymore. And I'm thinking, what does that mean for the future? Where is this all going? That we just keep on chunking out pieces of our beautiful West Pymble Park, taking more and more out from what could be another beautiful playing field for soccer players, like as we have over there. We've got rugby players on one side, soccer players on the other. Ku-ring-gai actually has lots and lots of playing fields, and yet none of this has just been, but we must have a plastic turf oval in the middle of Bicentennial Park. Why? That's the part I cannot understand. Why can't we use the fields that we have, because we have in this area even more soccer fields than pretty much any other area in Sydney, in terms of any other council area. We've got more than anyone else. So I think the idea of upgrading what we've got sounds like a very good idea, and then we all get to get what we want. Now, the thing that I'm really intrigued about too is that when you look at what everyone's, what's been said here in terms of the synthetic turf field, is that putting in the synthetic turf field seems to go absolutely against what the Ku-ring-gai Council's plan of management, what's at the heart of the plan of management for Bicentennial Park.
Deborah, if I could just get you to wrap up, because you've had your 3
I'm just going to say that you're thinking that with Bicentennial Park, we've got a plan of management that says, yes, for sport, protection of the conservation of the environment, and multi-purpose use. No mention, has anyone come up with on your side yet, on protecting our environment that we have there. And this is the most beautiful park, and yet you're prepared to turn it into plastic and let that go into the waterways. I don't get it. So I'm just really hoping that we might be able to look at the material that was come out tonight and just take a sit back and actually take in what we've learnt tonight from all of the speakers on this side of the room. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you, Deborah. Don't have any questions for you. Our last speaker is Lucas Fargate. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yep, come up. So that's still representing the West Pymble Football Club?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. No worries, thank you.
So I'll read it as if it was Lucas.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
So,
go ahead, Karen.
Hi, my name is Lucas Fardiat. I'm 17 years old and I've grown up playing football here in Ku-ring-gai and West Pymble. We've heard a lot of people talking about risks and restrictions, but as young people we see it differently. We don't want barriers, we just want a chance to play. You've heard before, but this August saw a lot of games cancelled or washed out due to the weather, but not on synthetic facilities where I believe most games went ahead. That's the difference between kids being out on the field, running around, or stuck at home on computers and monitors. And when we're young, every weekend lost feels like a big deal. It really matters to us. Sport inspires us. It gives us purpose, competition, and pride. But it's also about the simple things, training with friends, sharing the excitement of game day, or just kicking a ball around after school. Those moments are where we laugh, learn, and grow. We don't get that sitting indoors or staring at a wet oval wishing we were playing. We're often told and criticised that we're the iPhone generation, glued to our screens. But give us a reliable place to play and we'll be there. So we'll be there together, outdoors, enjoying ourselves. A modern, lasting facility like Norman Griffiths can be a centre of hope that pulls kids off their devices and onto sport. It can be something for the future that we're all proud of and we will use as we become adults. During lockdown, there were many things we missed, but most of all, it was being together outdoors, playing with sport with our mates. The joy of simply being allowed back on the field reminded us how important that connection is. Synthetic gives us that certainty we won't lose that again due to something as basic as heavy rain in a climate we have no control over. Not every game is organised by a club. Often we just grab a ball and head to the oval. That only works when the surface is playable. Right now, waterlogged fields lock us out. Synthetic means that the gates are open for everyone, organised teams and casual players alike. We're not ratepayers, we don't cast votes, but we are the future of the community. And what we're asking for is simple. Give us a chance, give us a field that works, let us play.
Okay, thank you, Kieran, on behalf of Lucas. Okay, so looks like we have no questions and no further speakers. So thank you to everyone for participating in tonight's public forum. The webcast of this forum will be published to Council's website tomorrow. The Council meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on Thursday, and you are encouraged to attend in person or view the live web stream via the Council's website. I encourage you to continue to stay engaged with Council and share your feedback. Thank you again for your participation. I declare the meeting closed at 8:33 p.m. Thank you.